think
No,
about
let's
it.
start there, actually.
Okay, I am Jay Rosenthal. You are,
Krista Raymer.
and this is Pot of Flowers, the official podcast of Hall of Flowers. We are in Toronto in September 2023 for show number 2 of Hall of Flowers in this country and in this province. We have a repeat offender with us today and a new guest as well. We're going to give you guys a chance to introduce yourself and then we'll dive in.
And your alter ego.
Right, and an alter ego. So 3 introductions, please. Go ahead, Roy.
Roy Agostino. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at a scientific organization called Zentrella, Inc.
We're going to get into that.
Sure.
I love it.
I'm Toni Shelton. I am the Managing Director of Collective Project, and I will get back to you on my alter ego at the end of this.
Fair enough. Before we get into collective stuff, tell us about Zentrella, because I find it fascinating. I know a bit about it, but give me the quick pitch.
Okay. So Zentrella is a scientific research organization. Our particular, contribution to the industry is we study EEG or brainwave data so that we can objectively characterize the effects cannabis products create.
I love it. So let me get this straight, and
Sure.
why you're two sitting next to each other.
Sure.
When I have a collective beverage, I'll be hooked up to a machine. I don't even know. Like, what do I?
Well, if you're part of the research
I know.
study, yes, but no,
Okay, so-
not in
so I skipped
general.
ahead.
Made it sound
I
like
skipped ahead. You make it sound like you get
everyone
collective,
who
and
drinks the Collective Project drink gets hooked up to
No.
the machine.
that would be awesome, by the way. No, but so I'm part of a.
Sure.
You're doing
Yes.
research
Okay, yes.
on collective product. I come in, I take I drink one, and then you check my brainwaves.
So okay, here's how it works. So we're both products of Hamilton. So our research facility is in
Third Hamilton guest today.
in Hamilton.
Second and third.
Hamilton, busy place.
Let's go.
So research participants come to our lab, and we put a EEG headset on them, and then we collect about an hour's worth of EEG or brainwave data just to kind of establish a bit of a baseline, what's going on up there, right? Then they'll consume the product, and
Delicious product.
delicious product, and then we'll collect about another 3 to 5 hours of data post-consumption, depending on what the client or collective project would like to understand about the beverage. So then we have these machine learning algorithms that we've trained up to understand things like, when does the psychoactive onset time, when did that occur? How potent was the experience, and when did that moment of maximum potency come? Or after 3 or 5 hours, what does offset look like in terms of that particular beverage?
And sorry.
Oh,
And
I'm ready.
that is individual to me, but collectively, if we do 5 or 10
Exactly.
people, it aggregates and we might find patterns. Is that right?
Exactly right. So we'll get typically 20 to 30 participants will kind of come through, and then we'll be able to kind of aggregate the results together and then present back to the client or kind of back to collective project. Here's kind of the the aggregate view of the experience created by your beverage.
Okay, 2 questions. Because this is very interesting. But as a brand, you're sitting here and what was the precipice for making this relationship? And then what is something that's come out of that relationship that you didn't anticipate, but now is a big part of the partnership?
Great questions. The impetus behind our partnership, I think, stems from we are not a functional-based company by trade. We make beer and spirits and RTDs, and when you sit down and innovate for beer, you don't think of we're not thinking what's the effects going to be? Are they going to make them feel energized or euphoric? We think, should the ABV be 6 or 6.2? And so it's hard to, we found that, in order to be in the cannabis beverage space, we need to be able to quantify the function of our beverages. We heard what Zentrella was doing, and for us, again, we come from a place where brand and storytelling and authenticity is really important. And we're finding our way in cannabis beverages. We found Zentrella, and that really helped us start to shape some of those things that I just talked about, like being able to talk about how our beverages can affect a consumer, help us understand, what our beverages are doing, and be able to optimize that. So I think the main crux of it was being able to have a solution to talk to consumers and retailers about how our beverages can affect different consumers, why you would pick one over the other, and that we can't do that ourselves without someone like Zentrella, because we are really good at making beverages that taste good. We don't make the cannabis that goes in it. We work with our partners to make sure that it's efficacious as it can be, and it's providing all the desired effects. And Roy and Zentrella are the people that help us to put a bow on that and make sure that everyone knows compliantly and objectively that it's not a marketing ploy at that point.
I think one of the things, and this is, I'm not pumping up your product, I'm happy to.
Yeah, please go for it.
But let's go with the category. Like, of all the cannabis categories, beverages, I think, are the most replicable, right? It doesn't matter if I've eaten or not eaten generally. It doesn't matter, it's like you drink the beverage, it's a very replicable thing, maybe unique to cannabis in the cannabis realm, which is why that's why I like them, because I know if I have a collective beverage, the onset's gonna be relatively the same, the effect is gonna be similar to the last time, the offset's gonna be the offset. I think that is unique to the category, and honing in on that, I think, is super smart. Not to pump you guys up at all, but it is smart.
Well, I think the example I always use is you'll ask a canna-curious person if they would be interested in trying a cannabis beverage, and they're like, no, I had a brownie in college and I'll never try it again. I'm like, okay, but you won't with this, because we know what we're doing, and it's legal. First step, we know what we're doing. Second, it's legal, and just try it at a low dose and work your way up there. And that's the type of conversation we need to be having. But it's really challenging in this Canadian marketplace to have those conversations without the backup from a case study like we did with Zentrella.
So the next brand coming out is called 15-minute onset. Just kidding. It would be good.
Hopefully we can just nail it down to 12 or something.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah. Something off.
Yeah.
Something like
15
a little.
15's too clean.
11 and a half.
15 is way
Yeah, we
too
want
clean.
everyone timing.
I would do that. I'm coming in for studies. I want to be paid.
You're hired.
So one of the interesting things about the industry, brands like Collective are innovating all the time, right? So in the last 6 months, I think Toni and her team introduced a beverage that has CBN in it, and then just a couple of months ago, a beverage that has CBG in it, right? And so there's so much innovation in the industry, and to be able to bring those stories to life at retail to help consumers understand the different effects created by those different formulations, I think is kind of a critical piece that we don't necessarily get right in Canada, because from a regulatory perspective, brands are reluctant to talk about these types of product effects. And so that's where doing the science and getting the data and then making it available to retailers or consumers, I really feel is kind of a critical part to paying off the investments that leading brands like Collective are making in terms of innovation.
And do you see that with those new cannabinoids in the products, in your research, do you see the effect that I would say, CBG is for a good time, CBN is for sleepy time? Do you see that? Does it bear out in the research?
Yes.
With brainwaves?
In the brainwaves.
It absolutely it does. Yeah, and that was one of the things that Toni kind of challenged us, was to kind of understand, does CBN actually increase a relaxation effect? And we were able to kind of give her some data that supported that. Yeah. It absolutely does. And same thing on the CBG side, does this kind of the inclusion of this cannabinoid kind of help with the energy? But again, same thing, empirically, there is a difference in terms of the experience that product creates. And so there's so much science and so much education to be done still in our industry. Every time we answer a question, I think 3 more questions kind of pop up.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we're just kind of eager to contribute to that.
But it's also the second or third time, maybe fourth time. We've only had 6 conversations so far, but in almost all of them so far, not new, because they're not new cannabinoids, but new cannabinoids for products are a big part of the conversation that brands are talking about, the retailers are asking about, because their consumers are too. So I feel like we're in a wave of the industry, certainly in Canada and some other more mature markets, that this is a thing. This is what people know what they're looking for, and backing it up by science and products, it's next level.
Well, and I think that's kind of one of the interesting things that Toni and I kind of partnered on in the last kind of couple of months is taking the results and putting them into an education program and making that available to retailers, making that available to budtenders, because a lot of times people are coming into budtenders with so many questions about, what does this do and what does that do? And so if the budtenders kind of can say, well, look, based on my personal experience, here's However, there is some additional science out there as a resource you guys can avail yourselves of. It helps the retailer guide that consumer towards the right product for the experience they're looking for, and it helps the consumer, kind of build trust in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Toni, what's next? Like, there's so many things. You have this really interesting position where fundamentally beverages are in the market. They hold this like kind of fun position. I think we talked about it last year, and you owning the space because of the way that you approach even the creative in the way that the brand shows up. Yeah. So like what now? You have some data, you're building educational tools with budtenders. Like, how do these pieces come together? Because I think one of the things that gets dropped a lot is how do we make data approachable?
Yeah.
And what you're talking about could fundamentally be almost unapproachable for some people.
For sure.
How do we make it accessible?
Yeah, so I think to start with what's next, I think the goal is to create a cannabis beverage for every consumer. So if you look at our portfolio now, you'll see that we have some that are low dosed, some that are the max dose, some that are 24 grams of sugar, some that are 0 grams of sugar, some that have CBN in them, some that have CBG in them. And so the goal is to be able to broaden it and think of any non-alc cooler and have the same choice, because we all like our different tastes. Some people would say pineapple is a divisive flavor. Some people, it's surprising. I have heard that grapefruit and pineapple and blueberry are very divisive.
Blueberry?
Yeah.
Blueberry.
I think I'm surprised by those.
How do you make this accessible for budtenders and managers and also customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of our skill sets is we're storytellers, we're brand people, we have, and then we have Roy's data to help us. So really, they do the white papers and do all the studies for us, and we go through and understand, what do we think consumers want to know most about the products that have studies done on them. We turn that into what I would call layman's terms, because I'm not a scientist either. Roy tells me that's fine to say based on all of the white paper and the studies we've done. And then we take it, and then we seriously go back and say, okay, well, how can we make sure this is useful for retailers to use? Because that's ultimately what we're here and doing this for. So, we make collateral, we do PK sessions. I try to bring Roy along for any,
science guy.
Yeah, he's my science
Roy's
guy.
Science guy.
I'm sure sidekick.
Yeah, I'm sure he loves that I'm telling everybody that. But yes, that's how we do it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Toni and your team did, one really smart example is characterizing the effects of the blood orange beverage. And there's so much data, kind of to your point, because there's so much data that's available. But Toni and your team kind of distilled it down to one insight about onset time. And I feel like that was relevant to what the consumers were looking for. And I thought she distilled it down to just a very simple, one data point story that was relevant to consumers. I thought that was a really good call.
Two features and a benefit.
Yes.
Features.
We're not just form, we're function too.
Right, but if it tasted like shit,
right,
it wouldn't matter. But it happens to be good.
Gosh.
Although I would argue, do cannabis products all have to taste good for them to be desirable?
No. But yours do.
But ours do. No, for sure. No,
but that's also part of your brand.
Exactly.
Right?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, just going back to picking the characteristic, is it the studies that you can get so granular. But so we fast acting was the question last year of why is our beverages going to take longer? And I was like, no, in fact, they're actually quicker than most edibles. So here's the study. And this year everyone's talking about CBG, and does it really come on, I didn't feel anything. And then it's if you look at the graph that Zentrella puts together and you look at the energy effects of CBG compared to our blood orange, it's I think it's 35% uptick or something. Energy is up here and it relaxes down here, and CBG is all the way up here. And so now we have a very clean story of why you should purchase this or drink this product line. It's meant for an uplifted, energetic effect. It's not going to put you on the couch, and that's the bow we put on that product. But we can also go back into the archives, because there's so many data points, to Roy's point. That's just the tip of the iceberg, but we're trying to just do tidbits for now. What are the key selling features that you should focus on to help you move this product?
What's the thing that opens the door?
Yes.
And starts to like create that interaction. And then when you open and show more information, and there's always got to be like that path to purchase essentially for a customer, but what are the data points along? And then also what's the purchase lifespan of the customer? So like today they want to know this. What do they want to know in 8 months? What do they want to know in a year? What do they want to know in 2 years? And what it looks like today versus when we were sitting here a year ago, very different.
Yeah. It's funny because everyone talks about how the cannabis industry is so quick and innovation, and I'm like, this is my favorite part. I'm biased, but also it's something that like we're used to on the collective arts beer side. Craft beer invented innovation in a way. Like we were putting out a new beer a week like 2 years ago, which is crazy to think back. And then I'm like, wait, there's only some companies just have like 3 products. I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we going to talk about? So anyways, I think just, my point there was that innovation is so core to what we do, and it's something that I'm proud to say that I think we're good at, but also working with folks like Zentrella make those decision points a lot easier.
I love this.
That's it. That's where we wrap it up.
That's right.
Nailed it.
Thank you so much for your time and your attention and your products too.